Saul and Battery, hosted by Mel and Kelly. Forget what you know. Forget what you know. A Saul and Battery.
And we're live. Welcome back to the second Saul and Battery. Well, we're going to be reviewing the second episode of Better Call Saul entitled Mijo. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Mel.
Hey everybody, I'm Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and yay for Better Call Saul. This was a great episode.
I loved it. This was so backstory. One, we tried our music. Alicia Holm did a great job in doing a nice song for us, and so we did it old school way. And I kind of just played it on a speaker before our last show, with the Saul bobblehead standing there, and we'll have hopefully a little better introduction that we'll tack onto when this goes up onto YouTube for those not watching live. So that'll be neat. But as Mel and I are getting ready, I know I really, really wanted to start talking about it, but I was like, well, let's wait till we start talking about it for real. So we are, and we'll get started on that. So yeah, I loved this episode too, so let's just get right to it. The cold opening started off with more food, just like yesterday's episode opened with cinnamon rolls. This one opens up with the preparation of fajitas, they look like. And as soon as I started to piece together what was being prepared and who we saw at the end of last episode, we all know Tuco likes to cook before he kills somebody.
Absolutely.
So there's Tuco just being the good grandson, making his grandmother some grub, and she comes in, and in come, what did you read? What did you call Tweedledee and Tweedledummer, Mel?
Yeah, but today Saul called him frickin' frack, and I like that too.
Yeah, so frickin' frack come in full frickin' frack mode, and biznatch, which was not a term I'm overly familiar with, but they tossed that out pretty quick in reference to Tuco's grandmother. Huge mistake. We got back to she fell-a-need me again.
Yep, I wrote that one down. That was in contention for quote of the night.
That was pretty awesome. There's a Lego in there. It was injured my Lego or something like that, which was not condescending at all.
Yeah.
And doctors ate cheap yo. And so they're, and we know frickin' Frack should really not be pushing this guy's buttons, but they don't appear to realize the peril they're putting themselves into until Tuco picks up Granny's cane and takes them both down with a couple swings and some clubbing, and
yep.
Frickin' Frack are down as we leave the opening.
So then we cut to Grandma upstairs listening to her telenovela, and she has dutifully turned it up very loud so that she can hear it, like her Mijo told her to. And but she still hears some thumps, so she wanders out to investigate and looks down the stairs and sees Tuco scrubbing at a stain on the carpet. He spilled some salsa, apparently. It's not blood, not at all. It's salsa. Totally salsa.
Absolutely.
Which she advises him to use some club soda on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of the tension about and that was really funny on Twitter, was that everybody's like, oh no, where's the club soda?
Yes.
That's totally gonna set.
Yep.
And Tuco has spilled his share of salsa in the day, I am sure.
Yes. Yeah, he's only getting started. So then a knock comes at the door, and someone demands to be let in to open up in the name of the law. And it is
Officer
our
of the
beloved Jimmy McGill, who Tuco jerks into the house, sits down in the chair. Well, and then Grandma comes out and sees the stain on the floor and is very, very concerned that Tuco has not put club soda on that stain yet.
Yeah, that's
So,
our second club soda update of the scene.
yes. And so here was another quote that was in contention for me as Jimmy McGill tells him, "I'm not sure if this is a situation where I should or shouldn't look you in the eye." I like that.
I had that one too. It didn't win,
Yeah.
but I had that one too.
Yeah, it didn't win, but it was a good one. So, Tuco explains to Jimmy how he's got a big mouth on him, and eventually they end up in he talks him into showing him where frickin' Frack are, and they end up in the garage. And Tuco pulls out a big knife, and Jimmy has won this argument by getting frickin' Frack out, but they spoil it by selling Jimmy out. And basically, then we get another great line. "Are you punking my abuelita?"
Which is a great band name. I'll
Yes.
stand by that. Yeah,
Yes.
this was an awesome scene between the club soda updates, and this is where frickin' Frack, the mop heads, came up as Saul's term for our Lars and Cal. And then and it was kind of vintage Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman in terms of, I'm going to look at this glass half full and assume they're still
Yes.
alive. But he went through both scenarios on all that. And you thought he was out the door. Tuco had given him the knife, was going to cut him loose, and then they just squealed on him.
Yeah, those stupid kids messed it up. They'd all gotten away with it, too.
Yeah. And then we move into Act 2, which I am still recovering from. I just loved this entire scene. It was just amazing on all kinds of levels. So we get out into a field in the desert. We're out in kind of the desert, and if you kind of remember back towards the later part of Breaking Bad, there was a time where Saul was meeting Walter and Jesse out in the desert, and Saul goes, "It's always the desert," and yes, indeed, it is. And it starts off with Tuco asking Jimmy to explain the situation, and he gives a 100% honest answer.
Which is shocking.
Yeah, and I kept waiting for a little twist, but it was completely out. Official Pagan is, by the way, suggesting that Saul might want to take advantage of being on as a stain remover commercial in the not-too-distant future. Or at least Tuco's grandma should be on there giving tips from there.
Yes, because I need someone to remind me about the wonders of club soda.
I had forgotten, but no longer.
Yes.
So he gives the example. He uses the term kettlemobile for Craig and Betsy's car, which I think is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But Tuco's not buying it entirely. He goes out and retrieves a toolbox and starts to work through which piece of equipment he will use. And he finally settles on a pair of fairly imposing shears that he places over Jimmy's pinky and asks him to proceed and tell him the story. So the finger's definitely at risk, and Jimmy's really starting to sweat. So during this time frame is when my favorite quote of the show, and it was hard because there were a lot, but I kept thinking about it, and I'm sticking with this one, which was, "Use your words, okay?" When Saul was telling Tuco to not chop his finger off. So I'm going with "Use your words, okay?"
Mine is also from this same scene, and mine is actually a quote from Tuco.
It was awesome.
Mine was, "You know what I smell? I smell lies."
It was, it was so cool to get Tuco back. But this was like not methed up Tuco, so there's still this kind of crazed bull thing going, but he's kind of more lucid, but he's really not that sharp a guy. And it's just amazing. And Raymond Cruz just does an amazing job as Tuco. And I believe Tuco was actually in the original plan was going to be a kind of the bad guy in Breaking Bad for a longer period of time, but he had other commitments. So that's when they had to kill him off and bring in Gus Fring. But yeah, there was so it starts to get better. So so Jimmy's a problem solver, and the truth, shockingly enough, did not work. So he, without missing a beat, changes his story to say he's Jeffrey A. Steele, FBI, tip of the spear. Tip of the spear. He's
Tip of the spear. And what was the operation name?
Operation Kingbreaker.
That makes me the king!
And he is so excited about that.
Oh, Tuco. Never change.
I was just rolling with Tuco being so excited to be the king.
Yes.
And so that was really cool. And Myrna's out there retweeting our link for folks to watch out on Twitter. Thank you very much, Myrna. That's awful cool of you. And so then he falls back. One of Tuco's cohorts, Nacho.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is the name of the next episode.
Yep.
Is Nacho. So he kind of gets in the mix, and he says, okay, the next words out of your mouth need to be the truth. So Mel, that's what you said. What story did you think he was going to go with when he said the next words out of your mouth need to be the truth? Was it going to be Jeffrey A. Steele or Jimmy McGill?
I thought he was going to go back to Jimmy McGill. He's not quite Saul Goodman yet. Saul Goodman would have sold it. but he's not Saul yet. So I thought he was going to fess up again as to who he really was.
Yeah, I thought I thought there was a chance. I thought pretty much he's going to go back and tell the truth, but I thought there was a chance he was going to double down on Project Kingbreaker and Operation Kingbreaker, but he told the truth. He explained he has a bad case of face blindness.
I got that.
Totally forget faces, so that's kind of handy. And so then Nacho and Tuco convene back a little bit, and Nacho says, hey, Saul's giving you respect. And so they eventually decide Jimmy can go, but frickin' frack, there needs to be retribution. And so they're gonna have to go. And Jimmy's just about to get out of the woods when he realizes what's going to happen. And this, to his credit, he goes back to the insane man with the knife to plead for these two guys that threw him completely under the bus. Yep. And starts off on this incredibly lovely mother story of she's got a cane and arthritis and she works all the time and how's she gonna feel.
Right.
And so he proposes a black eye eventually, which clearly not acceptable.
Yes. Well, and which one of them points out that one of them already has a black eye.
Yes, kind of.
Oh yeah, that was No-Do's too. Tuco beat the crap out of in Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Right, and there's I believe. Yeah, so this was the precursor to, because I thought, oh crap, because we're going to get a replay of, these people chipping in, and Tuco doesn't take, it's weird because he takes kind of input from Walt, or he takes input from Jimmy, but some of his own crew, if they kind of offer what appears to be a fairly innocuous statement, not so much. So then, inexplicably, Saul asks Tuco if he's familiar with the Code of Hammurabi, which... I was like, I think I know the answer to that, Jimmy.
Yeah,
I think the answer is gonna be no. But it's like a judge, and Tuco likes that. Like a judge, he likes that.
Yeah. He kind of took that idea and ran with it pretty hard.
Because then we went for eye for an eye, and they were trash talking. So maybe I should cut out their tongues. Or then there was some other reason that they were going to get Colombian neckties, and he's just going through this progression of not so good things. So finally it's like, well, Saul kept kind of pitching, hey, they're skateboarders, sprain their ankles, and then he wanted to cut their legs off.
It was a nice try.
Yeah, and so because he was working hard here, and this is Jimmy in full negotiation mode. He's going through, and so eventually he gets Tuco off the Colombian neckties and blinding them, and it now becomes a question of how many legs are going to be broken.
Yeah.
There's a negotiation where Tuco says 2 legs, and Saul says a piece,
Right.
and going back and forth, and he's like yes, and then eventually they get it down to 1 leg. The restitution will be 1 leg broken on both Frick and Frack.
Yes.
And Tuco goes about the business of.
And he enjoys it.
Yes. Gets all excited because one of the legs is kind of pointed backwards now. Another almost as excited about being a king as when he did the leg backwards.
Yep.
And then we cut to Saul or Jimmy whisking Frick and Frack into the hospital. And they're saying, you're the worst lawyer ever. And Jimmy is quick to point out, listen, I took you from a death sentence to 6 months probation. I'm a great lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I should mention that McGevna seems to like this more calm and reflective Tuco.
It's the pensive negotiating Tuco.
Yes.
I just assume because he's not completely methed
He
up.
hasn't quite fried his brain on all that meth yet. He's getting there, though.
So Myrna's saying that Saul has the worst negotiations. I
Hey,
don't know. I
a
think
Colombian necktie versus a broken leg. I think I'm going to go with the broken leg.
yeah, I think given the circumstances, since there was a very good chance they were no longer, Tuco was gonna skin them. So
Yes.
down to a broken leg seems pretty good.
Getting away from Tuco with just a broken leg is pretty good. That's a win. That's a definite win. So,
Yes. So Official Pagan has a question for us out there.
Okay.
And it is, I think this is directed to you and I. If you had to choose a leg, if it were you, how do you choose which leg if it were you? So I don't know if that's as the breaky or the breaker. So how would you decide which leg you were going to break, Mel?
I'm going to take that from if it was my leg getting broke. And me
Okay.
personally, I already have a bad ankle from being terribly graceful as a child, so I think I'd just choose to try to get all the damage on one leg. So I'd be going with my right leg. So if it ever comes up, anyone out there, that I need to have a leg broken, I'm going to go with the right leg.
Good plan. I can't. So actually, one of my legs is a 1/4 inch shorter than the other. And if I could remember which was which, I'd have them break the longer one on the hopes that it would shorten up a little bit and I'd level out, so that I wouldn't walk
I don't
in
know.
circles.
Yeah, I don't know. It might actually get longer.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Especially if they have to pin it. Oh, so I think that jumps us into Act 3, which we start off that Jimmy has taken himself to a bar to get wasted. But he's having a little trouble with that because everybody is eating breadsticks. Not the nice Olive Garden breadsticks, but those little crunchy breadsticks. And everybody's crunching them and breaking them in half. This is what you do when you're out drinking. And it's reminding him of the crack of broken bones. And he has to run to the bathroom and empty his stomach.
And those, I actually believe those were bones breaking. The way they filmed those breadsticks breaking, it was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a leg bone. That's another leg bone.
It did make a very good sound. They did a good job with that. So apparently after he empties his stomach, he goes back out into the bar and fills it a few more times again, because by the time he shows up at Chuck's house, he's totally wasted. He does not ground himself, y'all. This is very bad. And he walks into the house, drops his pants, and passes out on Chuck's couch. And the whole time Chuck is asking him, if he grounded himself. Well, Chuck picks up his pants, shakes him out, and out falls Jimmy's cell phone. So obviously he did not ground himself. So I didn't get a good look at what he used to actually get the cell phone, but Chuck scoops it up with something and throws it out into the front yard. So the next morning, Jimmy wakes up on the couch and is very contrite that he has comported himself in this manner. So Chuck is sitting there with his space blanket wrapped around himself. He has made coffee, but apparently Jimmy forgot to get milk, so there's no milk for the coffee. So it's black. And on the coffee table is the bill from Jimmy having taken Frickin' Frack to the urgent care clinic. And did you catch how much that bill was for?
I did not. It was on StorySync. It was like $1,600.
It was $1,456.79, which I thought was a damn good deal for two broken legs.
For two broken legs, yeah.
I'm like, wow, how long ago was this supposed to be? But anyway.
Might have been like a buy one, get one free deal or something like that.
Yeah. So Chuck has seen that, and Jimmy wakes up and he's worried that Chuck saw that because he has told Chuck that he was out of money, that he couldn't support both of them anymore, and so he's trying to explain this without making it seem like he's lied to his brother about the money situation. But it was really a good thing for Jimmy to do. He didn't have to pay for that.
Right. Yeah. And this is where, and there was a lot of on Twitter, there were a lot of people continue to be confused about Chuck, and were very confused about the space blanket. And Jimmy at one point kind of says, with the bill, goes, I'm not backsliding. I'm not going back to being Slippin' Jimmy. This represents a good thing because he did. And so my sense, and this comes back again to a little bit of the reading I did before the show, and I think this will be developed further as we get into other shows, is that Jimmy's not 100% certain if it's his actions that accelerate or make worse. Is Chuck's reactions to this stuff because of a problem with, obviously Chuck has something going on, mm-hmm. but is it because of Jimmy? And when here's Jimmy with a big medical bill and all that, and now Chuck's in a space blanket again, is it because of Jimmy, or is it because of his he has this unnecessary field of electromagnetism? So
okay.
So that's.
I was wondering why he was so insistent that he take off the space blanket, but they have a very long, deep conversation of Jimmy trying to get Chuck to take off the space blanket, which Chuck finally does, very begrudgingly. Until
Jimmy steps out the door. Then he comes
to find his phone.
And I heard lawnmowers out there, so I'm really hoping that the people, they weren't mowing Chuck's lawn because Jimmy's phone might not be in too good a shape.
Well, that was the next scene that I expected, was that his phone got chopped off, but, they never mention it when they go on. So I am assuming it survived the lawnmower. So that was basically all that was in Act 3. It was pretty short.
Yep, except at the very, very end, we see a return of Saul he comes bearing a gift for the receptionist he was not so kind to say he'd never take a case again, mm-hmm. to say, hey, I need money. I don't want to starve. Can you do me a solid here?
Okay, and at Lemerne wants to know why Chuck is so afraid of the cell phone. And that feeds into his fear of this electromagnetism that we, or at least I am assuming, is all in Chuck's head, that he's got a mental illness and he is afraid of electromagnetism. So he wants all phones, I believe car keys too, I guess with the wireless controllers, all of that kind of stuff left outside of the house, and he wants you to ground yourself before you come into the house. So
watches and those types of things. And so once again, and I think he's trying to make a career of it. Mike, Official Pagan, has shared a link with us again this week.
About grounding.
Not about grounding this time. This time he's given us a Google search to broken legs, which an image search. Thanks, Mike. We'll.
I don't need to see that.
That's probably not. So we'll go ahead and include that in the show description, Mike. If you go back actually to the first episode of Saul and Battery, you'll see that your grounding link is in the description now. So we gave you credit for that, and I will confer with Mel after the show, and I think there's a strong likelihood your broken leg image link will also be there, but we won't.
As long as I don't have to look at it myself. So, Act 4.
Act 4, and this again is another super fun scene. So this is Saul getting. So this is kind of like the meth cooking montage of Breaking Bad, but this is the Jimmy lawyering montage on trying to make some money. And there's a little cameo somewhere in all this back and forth of Kim. We see her just briefly pass, and they exchange a smile. But he's a busy boy in this act, and most of his days start off with standing in front of his rehearsal hall, which is the court restroom, and saying, "It's showtime, folks." And his first client is this incredibly massive mountain of a man with a lot of face tattoos who does not appear to be he wants to share some things with the judge that are probably not going to help his case, and Jimmy coaches him to say, "I'm very sorry and I'll never do it again." And they cut to this guy in the courtroom saying, "I'm very sorry and I'll never do it again." He loans another client a belt. In this whole time, kind of back and forth, he's got, of course, he's running into Mike and the stickers. Kind of a couple of visits where he always seems to be a sticker short, and Mike's a stickler on stickers, much like Craig's a stickler, and keeps sending them back. So this is building. He eventually calls Mike a troll at the end of the scene, which, oh, Jimmy, you need to be careful. And then there's this other prosecuting attorney that's always saying, petty with a prior, petty with a prior, and is not budging, is not budging, is not budging. At the very end of this whole montage, Saul gets him, or Jimmy gets him to at least soften that stance a little bit. So he's doing kind of, he's not, it's kind of clear the guy's heart's in the right place, and he's a hard worker, and he's doing some things here. And there's just like all kinds of nice little quotes in there from the different cases, and so you just would love to hear more about each of them. But he's like, "Okay, a fire was started. We know that."
There's something about baking cookies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then he hits one of his times out again. Mike rebuffs him at the gate. You got to get more stickers, and he's just
this is not a me problem. This is a you problem.
Like a troll under a bridge. Stickers. It's like, oh, yes. Jimmy.
I just love every time they cut to Mike.
Yeah, because you're just and because you've seen in some of the
previews
that eventually
there's an altercation.
Sort of altercation. Saul gets altered, or Jimmy gets altered.
Yeah.
And so then we cut back to Saul returns to his office in the nail salon and picks up a cup on the way in. No cucumber water, just a cup. Tries his Jedi phone trick again, no messages. And then we find out that, and I don't think we knew this for sure in the first episode, but we learned that not only is this spacious office where he conducts his work, it's also where he sleeps.
Yes.
So he starts to reconfigure the office for rest time and gets told that he has a client.
Yeah.
And so he very rapidly folds the bed back up and gets ready for the client. And in comes, and this is Nacho, right?
This is Nacho.
Yeah, so Nacho.
Who is so much saner than Tuco. I like Nacho.
Yeah, he's a criminal. He's clearly got some plans in mind, but he's not this highly strung, amazing ball of energy that Tuco is. Which he's a calm and reasoning criminal.
Yes. I mean, he was totally okay with frickin' Frack getting killed out in the desert, but the lawyer they needed to let go. So,
Right.
you know, Nacho has some sense. He's not a good guy, but he's got some sense.
In fact, he has such good sense that he goes, so you told me about this $1.6 million ripoff by the Kettlemans in their Kettlemobile, and I want to rip them off because when you rip off a crook, they can't go to the police,
Right.
which kind of makes sense.
And Jimmy is soaking all this up like a sponge.
Yes, and Jimmy's like, hey, and he's saying, hey, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a
I'm
criminal.
not a criminal.
Uh, I had a lapse in judgment. And he's not I'm happy to represent you and do lawyer things, but I'm not gonna give you information about where I don't know where the money is, and I'm not planning to find out for you.
Right.
And Nacho writes, I assume, his number down inside of one of the matchbooks
Matchbooks. Mm-hmm.
and says once he sees the light, give him a call.
Yep.
And
And he offered him a finder's fee, 10%.
yep,
So I'm afraid that money will come calling at some point.
yeah, particularly if he can't, because he's trying hard to get the money from the Kettlemans in the right way as their lawyer.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, he's
but
working very, very hard, but at $700 a pop for all of those lawsuits that he was going through, yeah, it's going to take a long time. But I have a feeling he's meeting some valuable contacts during this time.
yeah, yeah, he's starting to build a clientele, and I'm pretty sure he didn't get his belt back.
Probably not.
So he's got to buy a new belt. These are expenses. He's still banned from the cucumber water, so he's still got to
Yeah.
buy his things there. But
Yeah.
this was fun. This was for me a really fun episode. You started to see the kind of cleverness and kind of Energizer Bunny negotiating process of Jimmy McGill, especially with Tuco in the desert, but
Mhm.
really in multiple places. Apparently, the only person he can't negotiate with effectively is Mike, and
Yes.
and but everybody
And
else,
that never changes.
no, that stays a constant throughout the
Yes.
whole thing from there.
Yeah. So we should probably mention McGevna has reminded us that yesterday's premiere of Better Call Saul scored the highest debut ratings ever in cable history. So I think it beat out Deadwood, which held the record before then. So that's pretty good. I'll be interested to see how this episode did. So
Yeah, yeah, because it doesn't, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Um, I don't know what the audience crossover is between people who are in love with The Walking Dead or big fans of The Walking Dead and watch it, and Better Call Saul. But and I think that there may be a decent overlap, but it's a big challenge in terms of kind of tone and pacing, because it was kind
yeah,
of a tough shift of gears to get through Breaking Bad or get through Walking Dead, and they go into Better Call Saul, especially since the first episode started a little more leisurely to
right.
try and get some things out. But even this episode, I thought this was an outstanding episode. Um, I will rewatch the Tuco field scene over and over again. Um, but I'm still not. I still think it would have been hard to shift. So I think it's good to be separate. What'll be interesting to see is what happens to its numbers.
Yeah.
From there.
Well, I for one really like it being on a different night other than Walking Dead. I mean, we all watch Walking Dead, um, so it's not a matter of we're already on the channel, but The Walking Dead has a completely different vibe to it than Better Call Saul does, or even Breaking Bad did. So I don't think I don't feel like the two go well together for me. So I really enjoyed this episode a lot more for not having had the trauma that Walking Dead can sometimes be coming into it, because I expect a little more humor out of Saul Goodman than I do The Walking Dead. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would agree. So if they would stay connected, which they're not, but if they would stay connected, so I'm gonna give you a little quiz here, Mel, or I kind of get your sense of
Okay.
this. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the cast of Better Call Saul and put them in the zombie apocalypse, and we won't have to do all of them, but I'm gonna say we're gonna put Jimmy, Tuco, Frickin' Frack, the Kettlemans, and Mike in the zombie apocalypse.
Uh,
I want you to kind of now give me the tap out run. Who's going first, who's going second, who's gonna be a survivor.
the Kettlemans are out first, followed by Frickin' Frack. And I'm afraid I don't think that Jimmy McGill would last long. I'm thinking that probably Tuco would kill him himself because he was getting in the way. And then I'm going to say Tuco. And Mike will rule them all.
I, I'd have it in that order too because Jimmy's skill set will not translate to zombie management
Yeah.
because he's not going to be able to have a conversation and talk about what are the zombies, what about your mother and all these things.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. So I think I think I would go with that order exactly. Tuco's the wild card because he certainly has the physical capabilities to do well. But I just think at some point he'd, want to fight like 10,000 zombies by himself. And
He can't focus well, so Tuco will make it far, but he won't make it to the end because he's just too unfocused. He's too scattered, too crazy. Crazy won't make it. I don't think.
yeah, although we may have underestimated the Kettlemans.
They are questionable. They might really be pretty evil under there, but I'm thinking that Frickin' Frack have better experience at probably tripping them and leaving them for the zombies to save themselves. But I don't know. That Betsy Kettleman, I'm thinking she's got some hidden talent in there, so she might find a way to sacrifice those kids first. I don't know.
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, she'd probably, I think, sacrifice her husband pretty quickly.
Yeah, I view her as a alternative provider. That she'd
Yes.
say, instead of me, perhaps my husband you would like to be. Or perhaps these two bearded skaters would be more to your liking.
Yes.
Or Jimmy, I need you to do me a favor. Can you go out? Yeah, so she might actually move up the list a little.
She might go further than I think. Yeah, I don't know. But if we're going to keep them as a couple, I'm going to say the Kettlemans would have to go first, but,
I think, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stupid in Frickin' Frack. So I think but I also think that they might have some skills that translate. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
there's not a lot of call for skateboarding in the zombie apocalypse,
no.
but you never know. They've got long legs. I think those kids could probably run once their legs heal.
Yeah, currently they're definitely in a very bad position for a while. Poor guys. Just
Yeah.
and to Jimmy's credit, he got him out of there, but in the same breath, he's also the guy that basically put him into the situation. So
Yeah, but it's their fault because they found the wrong car.
yeah,
They trapped Tuco's grandma's car. If they had hit the Kettleman's car, it'd have gone according to plan.
that's right. If they had stuck with the plan.
That's right. So, but yeah, I agree, Myrna. The second episode was a lot funnier than the first, and I'm expecting that the second episode is the way that mostly it will go from now on. So.
Yeah, and it's a nice balance in that, I mean, there was a lot of smiling and funny parts in this episode, but there was also enough of a drama of things going on and things carrying forward that it's a nice mix.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad had that. It was kind of a little bit more, 70 to 80% dark, and then 25 to 20% light. I think this is going to be closer to 50-50, which is absolutely fine too. But yeah, I think that this tone in this episode is going to be closer to what we're going to see. And we do have we've got our first Google Hangout question, which is awesome.
Thank you, Julie.
And Julie asked if any speculation as to the origins of Chuck's. Oh, Julie, really?
Metalophobia.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, I am assuming he's just crazy. I don't know.
Well, and so my guess, and it is a little bit from the reading, and because of the whole Jimmy insisting he takes the blanket off, is that I think that Chuck was always the better achieving brother, worried about his younger brother who was kind of fallen the wrong way, done the wrong things, and every time he did bad things, it really started. Chuck felt responsibility for it, and he
Hmm.
eventually that was a seed that then kicked off to say that there's that started the process. I think there's some he has some sort of mental issue, and but this was potentially. I don't think Jimmy's behavior helps,
Okay.
and one possibility could be that it accelerates. That's is he got the blanket on because Jimmy's potentially done something bad again, or
Hmm.
has he got the blanket on because of the cell phone, or both? So we'll have to see. But
Okay.
go ahead.
Did you get that from just reading about the show coming up, or is some of that in the comic book, the digital comic that they have up? Because I have not read that yet.
No, the digital comic, which is really good, but it really kind of covers the white space between. Um, it's when Saul. It's the kind of the Better Call Saul episode, white space, and
Okay.
it's him working with Mike, to as a private investigator, to hey, there's this guy, Walt and Jesse,
Okay.
for had come to him to kind of get Badger out, and the process of pinning down that Walt indeed was a chemistry teacher and all that. So it's kind of that backstory a little bit,
Okay.
and them sizing up is this a chance for client prospecting or somebody to just stay away from.
Mhm. Okay.
So we'll need to give Julie a shout out in the description too as our first Q&A. So thanks very much for that, Julie. Very awesome.
Yep.
Um, and and we'll go from there. So,
Yep.
gosh, I can't believe it. We're not going to get together tomorrow night to do another one of these.
Yeah, next week it'll be on Monday at
Yes,
10:15 Central. We will be back after the third episode of Better Call Saul. So we hope all of you will join us.
absolutely. Thanks for anybody who watched us live here, interacted with us on Twitter, interacted with us through the Hangout. We want to keep working on this to get more people involved. And just talk about it and what we like about the show and comments and thanks to
Mhm.
everybody who has been interacting already because that just makes it a lot more fun for
Right.
us.
And we
Um,
might potentially be adding some guests at some point to come on
absolutely.
and talk to us.
Yeah, and if you're interested in being one of those guests, be sure to get a hold of either Mel or I, and we'll figure that out because it would be nice to have somebody kind of on the show with us, in addition to the chances to interact. So
Sure,
we're gonna
because Kelly and I have talked about this kind of stuff for a couple of years now, so it'd be nice to get some other opinions.
yeah, some fresh blood would be
Yes.
good. So alrighty,
Great.
no Colombian neckties for anybody tonight. Yay!
That's good.
Good job, Julie.
Always a good day.
And we will see everybody next week. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everyone.